They think their minds are their own. They think they're too smart to be manipulated, too aware to be influenced, too independent to be controlled. But Machiavelli would laugh at that illusion, because real control doesn't look like force. It doesn't come from threats or violence or screaming orders. It comes from silence, from suggestion, from precision. Control, in its purest form, looks like choice. It makes the target believe they arrived at the idea themselves. And that's what makes it so terrifying. You don't dominate someone by overpowering them. You dominate them by understanding what they think they need. Then you feed it back to them, lie, twisted slightly, tilted just enough to serve your aim. And by the time they realize what's happened, it's already done. This is the first principle of Machiavellian mind control. To lead people, first let them believe they are free, because no one resists what they feel they chose. So Machiavelli never imposed his will directly. He guided, nudged, allowed people to choose the very path that served him. Let's say you want to control the outcome of a conversation. You don't argue, you don't demand, you ask a loaded question, one that subtly limits the other person's options to only the outcomes you've already chosen. Like, do you think it's smarter to act now while the opportunity's still warm, or risk waiting and having to work twice as hard later? There's no third option. They feel like they're choosing, but every path leads where you want it to. That's not manipulation. That's cognitive engineering, Machiavellian style. But to pull that off, you have to master the second rule. Control their frame before you speak your facts. Because people don't believe the most accurate voice in the room. They believe the most anchored one, the one who sounds like the authority, who frames the terms, who defines the battlefield before anyone else realizes they're even in a fight. You walk into a meeting and say, "This is the direction that makes the most strategic sense given where the industry is headed." Boom, you've defined the frame. Now, anyone who disagrees isn't just offering in a different idea. They're challenging the logic of progress itself. You haven't even made your argument yet, and you've already won. That's how Machiavelli would take a room, not by yelling, by anchoring the narrative first. And if someone tries to resist, you don't push harder. You use the third rule, mirror their fear, then redirect it. This is core psychological Aikido. You don't attack their resistance, you use it. If they fear risk, you validate the fear, then point it toward the option you want. Say, Sage, you want them to accept a bold plan. You say, "I know you're hesitant. Anyone who's made the mistake of playing it too safe has felt that same hesitation. The real risk is what happens if we let this moment pass." Suddenly, their fear becomes your weapon, because now not choosing your plan feels like the dangerous move. This is how Machiavelli turned resistance into raw momentum, by never fighting emotion, only redirecting it. And what happens once you have emotional momentum on your side? You apply the fourth rule. Make them believe your idea was theirs. It's not enough to win an argument. You need people to defend the thing you wanted as if it was their own thought. You don't tell them what to do. You describe the problem, frame the stakes, ask leading questions, and then you pause. Let them speak. Let them discover the path you laid out. They'll say, "You know what actually makes sense and it'll be your plan." But now they've claimed it. And once someone claims ownership of an idea, they'll fight harder to protect it than you ever could. Machiavelli didn't want mindless followers. He wanted self-automated instruments, people who thought they were acting freely but were really acting in alignment with his design. That's the most dangerous kind of power. Control that doesn't look like control. Because when people can't see the strings. They never question who's pulling them. And yet even this isn't enough because ideas fade, emotions shift, loyalty drifts. That's why, because Machiavelli's fifth rule matters more than all the rest. Tie their identity to your influence. You don't just guide what people do. You shape how they see themselves while doing it. You make your followers feel wise for aligning with you. Make your supporters feel morally superior. Make your allies believe they're part of something elite. You use language like people like us don't. Tolerate weakness. That's why we always act early. Only those with vision will move on this now. You're not giving them a strategy. You're giving them an identity badge. And once people adopt an identity, they'll change their behavior automatically to match it. No pressure required. This is how you make your presence permanent in someone's mind. They don't just remember what you said. They remember how they felt about themselves when they were around you. And if that feeling was powerful, certain, respected, they'll seek it again and again until your approval becomes the axis of their decision-making. That's what Machiavelli would do today. Not argue on social media, not post louder. He'd walk into rooms, lower his voice, and say almost nothing. Because when you know how to craft frames, guide emotions, plant thoughts, and rewrite identities, you don't need to control everyone. You just need to control the one who controls the rest. And by the time they realize who's really driving their mind, you've already moved on to the next room, the next mind, the next decision you never had to fight for because it was always yours to begin with. Control isn't about domination. It's about infiltration. Machiavelli never walked into a room to overpower it. He slipped into the cracks of doubt, of desire, of identity, and made himself essential without being visible. This is why his sixth rule is so lethal. Control the rhythm. Decide when things begin and when they end. Because time is not neutral. Whoever controls the timing of a conversation, a negotiation, a decision, controls the tempo of thought. You see it in subtle moves. For example, he pauses longer than expected, forcing you to speak when first. He waits until you're slightly uncomfortable before delivering a key suggestion. He calls the meeting when others are reactive or tired, ensuring they'll default to whatever sounds most confident. His voice controls the rhythm, and you control the urgency, the pressure, the perception of options. People rarely choose the best idea. They choose the one that arrives at the right time. Machiavelli knew he who acts first rarely wins. He who acts last but with poise wins everything. So what does that look like today? You don't respond immediately. You don't rush to correct someone. You let others reveal their cards first. You watch the room. Then, when the moment dips into uncertainty, you step in with absolute clarity. That pause before you speak, that's psychological gravity. And when you control timing, your words land like one law. Now here's the seventh rule. Build silence into your presence. Most people try to dominate minds with more words, but Machiavelli understood. People don't follow those who speak the most. They follow the ones they have to interpret, the ones who are unreadable, because what you can't fully read, you watch, and what you're watching closely starts to control you. Machiavelli would sit quietly in a room full of talking men, saying nothing for 30 minutes, then ask a single loaded question. And suddenly, the conversation would rotate around him, not because he was loud, because he was precise. That's real influence. Let others reveal themselves in noise while you become dangerous in silence. If you want to control minds, you stop rushing to fill space. You create psychological space others feel pulled into. Speak slowly. Use long pauses. Let your gaze linger a moment longer than expected. Do less, but do it with surgical intensity. You don't need many words when people are already playing your voice in their heads. Now we move to the 8th rule, one of Machiavelli's most subtle. Use reputation as a decoy. People trust what seems stable, so you build an outer persona, a consistent, predictable surface. Maybe you're the thoughtful one, the calm one, the humble one. But behind that reputation, you store your moves. Because once people know who you are, they stop watching closely. That's when you strike. Machiavelli used this constantly, appearing loyal until the very moment loyalty stopped serving him. He didn't lie. He allowed people to assume, and their assumptions became a shield he operated behind. Today you do the same. You let them label you. Then, while they're busy trusting the label, you reshape the terrain beneath them. Reputation isn't your identity. It's your camouflage. And if done correctly, it protects your real motives while they grow stronger in silence. Let's sharpen this further with rule number 9. Influence the influencer. Machiavelli didn't waste time persuading the crowd. He looked for the one person who mattered, the leader, the voice, the echo chamber's core. Then he'd build rapport subtly, calmly, respectfully. He'd make that person feel heard, empowered, seen. And when the moment came, he'd implant a thought so aligned with their ego that they'd push his agenda, thinking it was their own. This is how you move entire systems, not just through the front door, but through the person who holds the keys. You find the voice others follow. You shape that voice, and the rest follow automatically. That's not charm. That's targeted leverage. Now becomes the 10th rule. Disarm them with a shared weakness. This is one of Machiavelli's most devastating psychological tactics. When people see you as too perfect, they get defensive. They question your motives. They resist your presence. But when you confess a small, non-dangerous flaw, one that makes you human, they relax. You say things like, "Honestly, I overthink things sometimes too. Took me a while to figure that out myself. I failed more times than I care to count." This isn't vulnerability. It's tactical humility. You're not exposing weakness. You're manufacturing relatability. And the moment someone feels you're just like them, they stop guarding their mind. They open up. They mirror your tone. They start absorbing your suggestions like they're part of a shared story. That's when you plant the seed. It won't feel like influence. It'll feel like connection, but it will spread in their behavior, their speech, their next move, until they look back and realize they've become an agent of your frame. And that's the power of Machiavelli's method. You don't push, you pull. You don't demand, you design. You don't tell them what to think. You make them believe they've never thought more clearly. And by the time they understand what's happened, you've already rewired the architecture of their mind and walked out the door like you were never there. True control doesn't feel like pressure. Well, it feels like clarity. And that's what makes Machiavellian influence so terrifying, because it doesn't break the mind. It just shapes it until it willingly builds its own cage, and then thanks you for the design. We've entered the deepest layers now, not the surface techniques of persuasion, but the long game, psychological architecture that allows someone to dominate another's thinking without ever raising a voice or leaving a fingerprint. Let's continue with Rule 11. Control their future by framing their past. People don't just act based on logic. They act based on narrative. They want their choices to feel consistent with their identity. And Machiavelli understood that if you reframe someone's past, you subtly lock in how they behave next. You remind them of their past actions, but you reinterpret them. You say, "You've always been someone who sees through nonsense. Don't stop now. You made the brave move back then. This is just the next step. That risk you took last time. This is the same energy, just evolved." What are you doing? You're writing their storyline for them, framing their past decisions as stepping stones toward your desired outcome. This is how you override resistance. You make the choice feel like self-continuity. They believe they're just being true to who they've always been. But who defined that identity? You did. That's not suggestion. That's narrative possession. And once you own someone's story, you own their next step. Now, on to Rule 12. Perhaps the most misunderstood and misused. Reward them not with praise, but with positioning. Most people try to win loyalty by giving compliments, but compliments wear off. They're forgettable, generic, often dismissed. Machiavelli would never rely on shallow flattery. He'd reward people with roles that elevate them in their own eyes within your frame. You say, "You're the only one I trust with this. You always catch what others miss. This needs your eye. You're the calmest in chaos. That's why I'm bringing this to you." You're not just praising, you're assigning identity. And once someone adopts that identity, they bind themselves to your influence, because now their self-worth is tied to how you see them. You've made your approval their mirror, and if you ever pulled that mirror away, they'd chase to get it back. Not because they like you, but because without your frame, they feel less like themselves. That's how Machiavelli built loyalty. Not with gifts, not with money, with identity roles they didn't want to lose. Let's move into the most difficult but devastating tactic of all. Rule 13. Control minds by controlling what they fear to lose. Every mind has an anchor, a fear so deep, so hidden that it governs every decision, even the rational ones. Machiavelli would never seek it by asking directly. He would watch closely. He'd look for subtle cues. For example, what do they defend emotionally, even when it makes no logical sense? What do they bring up repeatedly unprompted? What kind of people do they resent or overpraise? That's how you locate the real pressure point, the unspoken fear. Fear of irrelevance, fear of rejection, fear of being ordinary, fear of being exposed. Once you find that, you don't exploit it immediately. You simply position yourself as the shield against that fear. You say, "What you're building here, people don't understand how rare it is." But I do. There's only a few people thinking ahead like you are. That's why we align. Most people settle. But what you're doing, that's elite behavior. Now you've placed yourself between them and their fear. Your presence feels like security. Your absence would feel like risk. And now they're tethered to you, not because of your strength, but because without you, they might have to confront something they've spent years avoiding. That's not influence. That's psychological captivity by choice. And it's the crown jewel of Machiavellian mind control. Because at that point, you don't need to persuade. You don't need to push. You don't even need to be present. They'll check themselves, correct themselves, think twice automatically before making a move that might cost them your approval. And all of it started with what seemed like a casual comment, a respectful pause, a soft validation, a subtle roll, a carefully crafted frame. That's the irony of real control. It's invisible. It doesn't feel like chains. It feels like alignment. They walk away, thinking they're clear-headed, focused, more themselves than ever. They don't feel like they've been steered. They feel like they've finally found clarity. But that clarity was yours, not theirs. And by the time the realization hits, if it ever does, they're already doing your work, speaking your language, carrying out your will with pride. When control is perfect, it leaves no fingerprints. They speak your words as if they were their own. They fight for your goals, while believing they're defending their values. They call it self-expression, when in reality their entire worldview has been shaped, narrowed, and polished by you. This is not theory, this is Machiavellian reality. And it doesn't rely on genius, it relies on architecture. The architecture of suggestion, timing, identity, and silence. Now that you've absorbed the 13 rules, the question isn't if you can control someone's mind. It's how long can you stay invisible while doing it? Because here's the final layer, the sustainment layer, where Machiavelli would turn influence into permanence. You've already planted the frame, shaped the story, and redirected the emotion. But if you stop there, it can all unravel. So now you reinforce all control through 3 invisible cycles. Cycle 1, predictive conditioning. This is where you train them to anticipate your approval. You don't need to micromanage them anymore. They start checking their choices against what they believe you would think. Before speaking, they pause. Would he respect this? Before acting, they reflect. She wouldn't do it this way. You've become their inner judge, their invisible compass. Not because you commanded anything, but because you've quietly tied their self-respect to your perspective. And here's the trick. You don't reinforce this with compliments. You reinforce it with selective withdrawal, a moment of cold silence, a delayed reply, a faint change in tone, and suddenly they're scrambling, readjusting, not because you said anything, but because they felt the shift. They missed the emotional equilibrium they used to have with you, and they'll correct themselves to earn it back. That's not manipulation, that's influence that self-perpetuates. Cycle 2, intellectual echoing. You start hearing your language in their mouth, your metaphors, your tone, your philosophy. At first, it's subtle. It's not about force. It's about leverage. The frame matters more than the facts. You don't chase power. You shape the space until it lands in your lap. These are your ideas echoed back to you. And every time they say them, they reinforce their own buy-in. It becomes a loop. They quote you. They post about your thoughts. They teach others what they learned from you. Now they're not just a subject of your influence. They're a messenger of it. And once someone starts publicly defending your frame, they will not betray it, because to do so would be to lose face. That's Machiavellian brilliance. You get people to build their reputation on your influence. Now they protect your control without even realizing they're doing it. Cycle 3, controlled dissonance. This is where you create just enough friction to remain necessary. You do this not by causing drama, but by remaining slightly beyond their full comprehension. You let them feel that they almost understand you, but not quite. That your next move, your next insight, your next pivot holds something just out of their reach. This creates attention, not anxiety, curiosity. And curiosity is addictive. You become the one person whose mind they want to decode, whose presence they seek when their own certainty starts to crack. You don't offer easy access. You offer rare clarity. That scarcity of full understanding keeps them orbiting your gravity. And no matter how confident they become in the outer world, around you, they stay slightly tilted. It's not because you make them feel small. It's because you make them feel unfinished. And people will return endlessly to whatever makes them feel like they're becoming something more. This is how Machiavelli would never need to control someone through brute force. He'd make them addicted to his perception of them. He'd design the mental loop they can't step out of, because leaving it would mean losing their evolved identity. And that above all is the final Machiavellian truth. The guest's deepest control is when your absence becomes destabilizing, when your silence speaks louder than other people's words, when your approval feels like alignment, when your distance is interpreted as a test, when your mind becomes the compass they reach for in every moment of doubt. At this level, you are no longer influencing their decisions. You are inhabiting their operating system. And whether it's a business partner, a lover, a team, a group, they won't just follow you. They'll rely on you to remain whole. They'll build strategies that align with your vision. They'll ask themselves what you would say in a room you're not even in. They'll crave your insight, not because it's loud, but because it's always a step beyond theirs. And the moment you choose to speak, to reward, to return, it will feel to them not like a favor, but like the world snapping back into order. That is how Machiavelli would control anyone's mind today. Not through seduction, not through pressure, but by quietly becoming the reference point for their thinking, the unseen engine behind their freedom and the architect of a psychological reality they never consented to but will never want to.